Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to day 5 of the Marriage and Family Week. And today, in our conversations with ministries of the Family Life Commission, we have with us the ministry called Bethesda. Now, not many people are familiar with Bethesda, so let me just give a little introduction and then we can welcome our panelists. Bethesda is a registered NGO providing support for families with persons with disabilities or our friends who are differently abled. We provide a sensory-friendly mask option suited for persons with disabilities and provide support to the family within the parish. We also prepare persons with disabilities for the sacraments and of the church and training for catechists, volunteers, and clergy. With me this afternoon, we have some wonderful guests. And firstly, I'd like to introduce Louis and Alicia Moore, both married for 27 years and have a 10-year-old son, Peter, who has intellectual and language disabilities. Peter was adopted at 11 months. Louis is a high school guidance counselor, and Alicia is a special education teacher who works with children of all ages with learning disabilities. Peter received his first Holy Communion with the Bethesda community. Also with us is Rosanna Trestriel. Rosanna is a mother of 5, including Rebecca, who has Rett syndrome, and Gareth, who is autistic. She has served on the executive committee of the Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago for 26 years and is a director at Life Center, a school for children with autism as well as neurodiverse children. Both of her children received their first Holy Communion with the Bethesda community. And finally, we have Adana James. Adana James, and she is a board member of Bethesda. She teaches at the regional seminary and has an older brother, Chiron, who is autistic. She has a PhD in disabilities and theology. So welcome. We have a qualified group to speak about Bethesda here. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.
So let's start with Louis and Alicia. Tell us a bit more about Peter.
Okay, thanks. Peter was adopted, like you said in your little intro. We adopted him when he was 11 months old. After 5 years, more than 5 years of being on the list with the adoption board, we were just so excited to become parents. And although we knew from a little bit of the history, we suspected from the history that we were given that he would have challenges. We were optimistic that all would be well. We chose the middle name Nathaniel for him. Nathaniel means a gift from God because we really felt that we were blessed to have this little boy. At the age of 11 months, he couldn't even crawl. He was born with a cleft palate, which had not been repaired, which was late in the game. So like I said, we suspected that there might be challenges. But with my background in special ed, I was optimistic that if, we did everything, we could narrow the gap. Speech therapy started at age 2 after his surgeries, and we tried to work with his teachers and so on. As time went along, we realized that it was going to be a challenge. And although he was making progress, the progress was slow. So now that he is 10, going on 11, his expressive speech is still very limited. He's learning how to use a device to help him to communicate. And for us, I think hope is that we could unlock the avenue for him to be able to communicate with more people, because he has so much to share, right? Other challenges that we are working with him on, his learning academics, learning to read and write is a real challenge for him. I don't think I have met a child ever who is more dyslexic, who has ADHD, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, everything you name it. I think he has it. And again, when he has so much to share, and when he understands something, when he learns something, he is so excited about it. And it's just, the journey for us is to try and just help him to unlock the potential, because we know it's there.
Good. Thank you for that, Alicia. And I'm sure you share in the effort to teach Peter, yes?
Well, it is very apparent. If you meet Peter, you would not really have a clue as to the extent of his academic issues, and because he's so social, despite his speech impediment. He willingly initiates conversations with new children. He actually seeks out social interaction with them on a regular basis if you go to the beach or anywhere. But we knew that regular schooling, regular types of classes like for First Communion would definitely not be appropriate for him. And so when he was around 6-7 years old, we decided to say, we need to look at options for First Communion, because being catechist ourselves, we were catechists. We worked with the confirmation class for over 10 years within our parish. We understood that we really felt that wouldn't meet his need. And Alicia did a great deal of research to see what options were out there, and we found the Bethesda community. It was a journey for us every Sunday to travel up to Aruka, right? Aruka. But it's something that we willingly did because we knew it was going to be in his best interest. And working with the catechist there, he was able to work one-on-one with the catechist there, and he enjoyed the interaction. He enjoys going to church, whenever the Bethesda community has mass as such. So we are very grateful for the Bethesda community and everyone involved. It is a unique but also inspirational community, and you really have to experience the mass and their celebrations to understand.
Yes,
to fully appreciate it. Yeah,
I'm sure it's not what we are accustomed to at mass and so forth. So let's get Rosanna in, because her son was also let's see, given or received First Holy Communion through Bethesda, yes?
Yes, Pauline, but I have quite a few other children, so let me share my story too. Our daughter Rebecca was our first child, and the only one that was really a planned pregnancy. She seemed to develop normally, and we were so happy with our beautiful baby girl. But by the time she turned 2, we knew something was terribly wrong. And eventually we received a diagnosis of autism or possibly Rett syndrome. I remember going through a very dark, deep depression as we grieved for our daughter who would never have a normal life and might even die between the ages of 8 to 16 years old. My husband and I were devastated and in the throes of dealing with our raw emotions when we discovered I was pregnant again. Of course, doubts about the pregnancy and if our second child would be autistic prevailed. Our son Wilfred was born 9 months after Rebecca's diagnosis, and I remember lying with him that night in the nursing home, just reassuring him, or maybe myself, that I would love him no matter what. We took Wilfred home and he lit up our lives. He was a healthy baby boy and he never stopped smiling. And to this day, he has the most optimistic disposition. Our love for Rebecca never stopped growing, and our second child, Wilfred, just opened up a whole other package of joy and love for our family. When Will was 1.5 years old, we again learned I was pregnant, and this time there was little fear. We felt that Will was fine, and the incidence of autism was thought to be, at that time, 1 in every 1,000. So we figured the odds were in our favor. We looked forward to the birth of our third child, and a beautiful baby girl called Julia was born when Will was 2 years old. We now had 3 children under the age of 5. Sleep deprivation and exhaustion were the order of the day. Children were constantly having to be fed, changed, bathed, supervised, and messes cleaned, and I was physically, emotionally, and mentally drained. But once again, the joy and love that our third child brought to our family was expansive. Will and Julia were constantly interacting, playing, and getting up to some childish prank, bringing joy and laughter into our home. Without her siblings, Rebecca's life would have been much poorer. Will and Julia, as young as they were, had a big impact on their older sister, Rebecca. In February 2001, we learned that a blood test for Rett syndrome had recently been developed, and in May of that year, we received confirmation that Rebecca had a rare disorder called Rett syndrome. At this time, I was pregnant with our 4th child. Rebecca was almost 9, Will 6, and Julia 4 years old. I was just getting my life back to some sense of what I would consider normal and feeling able to cope when we had another newborn baby boy, Gareth. We did not know then that 15 months later, Gareth would be diagnosed with autism. This time, the diagnosis of autism did not have the same devastating effect it did when we learned of Rebecca's diagnosis. We had been through a lot as a family by then, and we knew we had overcome many challenges, and we would do this one, and this would be overcome too. We looked at Gareth as a gift from God, and if any family had to look after him and bring him up, then ours was the best, because we had learned so much about autism from having Rebecca. The saddest thing was seeing Will and Julia grieve for a little baby brother they loved so much. But God is amazing and his ways mysterious, because 10 months after Gareth's diagnosis, we learned I was pregnant again. This time I cried and worried for 3 months while I tried to process the news. I felt I could just not cope with another baby at this time, but with God's grace, I pulled myself together. And July 2004, we had our 5th child, a baby boy called James. James was a healthy baby, and Will and Julia had another baby brother to play with who they loved dearly. Of course, we cautiously looked for signs of autism, but James developed normally and brought such joy and laughter to our home. I can't imagine what our lives would have been like without him. Having a large family is not easy. It requires lots of resources, financial, physical, and emotional, as you strive to give each child enough love and attention they need. And having children with disabilities in such a large family is even more stressful. Children who cannot care for themselves, who need constant supervision 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, make family life very difficult. It is difficult for the children with disabilities and difficult for the rest of the family who care for them. Many times I lose self-control and take my anger and frustration out on the persons I love the most. But these same challenges and trials shape us into strong, patient, and compassionate human beings who persevere when things get rough. Attributes which we might never have acquired without our children with disabilities. Our family was not planned, but God sure had a plan for our family. Our children are all so precious to us, those with challenging disabilities and those without. Each child is unique and a gift from God, that opened the door to a whole new world of experiences which we would have missed had we not had them. They all continue to enrich our lives and each other's in ways we could never have imagined or planned. But here I'd like to just share something on our experience with Bethesda and to tell you how grateful I am to Bethesda for allowing our children with challenging disabilities and behaviors to take part in Holy Mass. When Sarah invited me to the first sensory-friendly Mass, I took my son Gareth and for a while continued taking Gareth only, as he was the easier child to manage than bringing two children with challenging behavior and special needs. After a while, Sarah encouraged me to bring Rebecca also. And because of the many kind people who volunteer at Bethesda, I felt comfortable to bring both children, knowing there would be someone to help me if I needed assistance at Mass. Bethesda also made it possible for Rebecca and Gareth to receive their first Holy Communion, which I had been told would not be possible as they could not understand that what they were receiving was actually the body of Christ. Both children so enjoy going to Bethesda's sensory-friendly masses. They feel accepted and loved and look forward to receiving Holy Communion with everyone else.
Thank you, Rosanna. That was beautiful that, Bethesda came in and blessed your family in that way. And Adana, you have a brother who is autistic, but you have a special let's say vocation when it comes to Bethesda and what they are doing. Tell us more about your brother and yourself and your vocation within this work.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me here. My name is Adana. I come from a family of 5. I have a younger sister and an older brother, Kyron. And Kyron is, well, what you would call autistic. At the time that we were coming up, there was not much knowledge on autism. And so he was really diagnosed as having hyperactive disorder. And over the years, this came to be known now as autism. In terms of my experience being a sibling and not a parent, growing up with somebody with autism was fantastic because playtime was super fun because he was really overactive and very wild. And so, so I remember we used to have a little toy car and he would just push me all over the place. And, that was fun. And then as I grew older, like as a teenager, I began to become more embarrassed by his behavior when I found out it was different. And I would try to avoid him. And, if he's on one side of the street, I'll cross on the other side and that kind of thing. But my mother always wanted both of us to do things together. I think that was her way of, making sure he was integrated in society and stuff. And so the same happened for the sacraments of the church. My mother was insistent that he receive the sacraments. So when it was time for him to make First Communion, she became a catechist, and because of that was able to support the other catechists there. And so he was part of the program in St. Francis Belmont. And later on for confirmation, again, the same thing. This time my father went and he was about to discuss with the persons there about the situation, and one catechist just jumped up and said, "Bring him, I will take him," without even knowing anything about it. And so in that sense, we were supported by the parish community, but that is not everybody's experience. As you would have heard from Rosanna, there are some persons who feel that persons with disabilities are perhaps too much, their behavior is too much for them to handle in the classroom, or that they just wouldn't understand the importance of the Eucharist and different things like that. But that's not really the case, because I have experienced with my own brother that not only is there something that is going on within them, but there's a great love. I mean, even up till today, my brother just loves the church and he loves the activities in the church and that kind of thing. So I decided to go on to study, and I was drawn to doing theology. And when I was abroad, I had the opportunity to do more on disability. I'd never heard of disability theology, but it was there and I was drawn to it naturally. And the more I discovered about that, is the more it opened up a whole world for me in terms of understanding not just persons with disabilities, but all of us and church and what we are required to do. And that's kind of the direction that I go in now. Um, and I don't know if I could probably share a little bit on the church's position in terms of that now. Yeah, it's been a lot of growth in the church's understanding of persons with disabilities. I do have a PowerPoint to share, but I may not have time to share it, so I'll just go on. Because Pope Francis in 2020, June 2020, issued some updates to the Directory on Catechesis, which is a very important document and development in the church, because this has only been reviewed once before. And in it, he particularly mentions persons with disabilities. And he says, persons with disabilities have a right to the sacraments. And he was very strong and firm in that, and that our communities need to become places where they will feel included and welcomed. So it's not just about rights and entitlements, it is also about welcome and hospitality. And also not that they are just there to receive, but that they can also give, they can participate according to their own gifts and talents that they too bring to the community. And so this is very refreshing to hear from the top, and I'm praying and hoping that it filters down to the bottom so that no parent will ever have to hear those words from any catechist that their child cannot be accepted into the program. So Bethesda offers training in sacraments of First Communion, and they have already started going in the direction of confirmation. But because of the lockdown and everything, that has not really come to fruition as yet. But we hope that that will be continued. In the meantime, they have training for catechists who are interested, and also for catechists in the parishes who just want to know more about, teaching persons with disabilities. In fact, tomorrow, Bethesda will be working with Santa Rosa Parish to assist those catechists there with that kind of ministry.
Yeah, so the Eastern Vicariate has their first online catechist training, eh? Isn't that fantastic? Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So tell us a bit more about Bethesda's outreach in the different parishes. Everybody can chime in on what at this point. Tell us about outreach to parishes. How can Mhm.
Do you mean the where Bethesda has had masses? Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So Bethesda, we are 6 years old, first of all. And Bethesda started at the Archbishop's Chapel and quickly spread to Aruka as its first base, and had more or less developed there, but continued to spread to both the southern and the central vicariates. At the moment, we are not meeting because of the lockdowns, but in any event after COVID, it became a little bit difficult for the parents and families to come out with the new restrictions that were put in place, like mask wearing and that kind of thing. So we haven't quite been able to get our rhythm coming back out as yet. But it is our hope that that can happen. We would meet at Aruka every second Sunday of the month from 10:30, and it's a sensory friendly mass. What does that mean? It means that it more or less caters to persons who have particular sensory needs and sensory sensitivities, because for a lot of persons with autism, they are quite sensitive. And so it just means that we have to become sensitive to their needs and make little adjustments in the space so that they would feel comfortable.
And what are some of those adjustments? Maybe Louis or Alicia could share with us. What are some of the adjustments that have been made to have these sensory-friendly masses?
And I would say not just sensory friendly, people friendly. Bethesda is the most welcoming church community I ever experienced. But the mass is shorter, for one. The singing is not mic'd. So lovely singing with a guitar accompanying and so on, but the music is soft, not jarring on the ears at all. We remain seated for the entire mass, which can be a little bit different at first, because we are used to standing up, kneeling down at different points and so on, but remain seated for the whole mass. There is an area at the back that they set up for the children to be able to move around if they need to be to move around. Those who need to be using their hands, like our son Peter, a lot of the times, he has to be constantly fidgeting with something in his hands. There's a table set up at the back with things for the children if they need that. The sermon, the homily is usually very focused and short, to keep the mass short for the children not to lose focus too much.
Yeah, I personally think that the adjustments is not so much for the children. The children are allowed to be themselves, and therefore the adjustment is actually for us, the normal people, because if the children are allowed, then they're allowed to be loud, and we have to adjust to that. So instead of us removing the kids from the church so that the church stays the way it is, we bring the kids into the church and the church adjusts to them. And so that for me, it was eye-opening the first time, but I so appreciate it. The fact that this community is allowing the kids to be themselves, but be part of the community as well. And that's really important. I think that's what church is all about.
Yes, thanks there, Louis and Alicia. And so Rosanna, we're just gonna ask you to end us off and share with us. I know you shared the how welcoming Bethesda was to both both Rebecca and
Gareth.
to Gareth. Yes. And so yes, what about would you bring your other children into no?
Well, my other children did come a couple of times, but I think, it's difficult for them. I think they have to deal with this brother and sister, as I say, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they prefer to go to their own masses, and I let them be. I say, this is a time for me to be with Becca and Gareth, and we are happy. And I mean, if I do need help, my older daughter would come, but it's only if I ask her, So I think they just preferred to have their some time apart, and this is a special time for Becca and Gareth. And sometimes I've brought my mother. She enjoys coming to these sensory friendly masses. She really says she never leaves there without being moved and touched in some way. So, that's the person that I would bring. And my other children, I mean, my son is away at university. My daughter, she's gone on with her life. So it's really only my 17-year-old that still comes to mass with me at all. And he says, he prefers if we could just go to the normal mass. So I leave it up to him. But Becca and Gareth so enjoyed, and I so enjoyed also. I mean, anybody that comes to that mass doesn't leave the same, they're changed, they're transformed.
Yes, that's wonderful to hear. So thank you. Thanks to all of you, Louis, Alicia Moore, Rosanna Trestriel, and Adana James, for representing Bethesda today in the midst of Marriage and Family Week. And certainly all families are welcome in the church. And we want to reiterate that in this session here. So today the focus is on healing the family. So please do join us for prayers for healing of the family this evening at 6 p.m. on Trinity TV. We'll be on Facebook as well, live. And so at 6 to 7 p.m., prayers for the family. And we'll see you then. God bless.
Thanks,
Thank you
Pauline.
so much.